It's time. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this one. We are going to run an Armchair GM session for TSM. Since they failed to make Worlds, they will be working very hard already on what are our plans for 2022. How do we redeem ourselves from getting to Worlds last year but going 0-6, not getting to Worlds this year? How do we fix that trajectory and not have the line curve any further downwards? TSM does not accept losing. They do not accept failing. They will make changes. I don't think there's anybody who thinks TSM is not going to make, relatively drastic changes to their LCS lineup. So let's jump into it. We'll use the framework that we've been working on here, lay out our goals for TSM. And the goals for TSM are win at all costs. Sub goal, win. Other sub goal, obtain victory. So, current assets, not free agents. Here we go. So current assets are players who are under contract with the organization beyond this year. And that's everybody in TSM, conveniently enough. So we begin. Yeah, no, that's a good point from Lego Lobo in Twitch chat. There is another sub goal. And the third sub goal is, just to rip off exactly what you said in the chat, very good, don't lose. So, beginning questions. What do we keep from this year, if anything? I don't think it's that drastic. What do we keep? Spica. If he's not the MVP, I will be shocked and a little bit upset. He's going to be the summer regular season MVP. He has to be. So Spica, I build with Spica. The most valuable thing in building a quality LCS roster that can go to Worlds is your domestic core. And maybe you'd be able to find a stronger import jungler than what you have in Spica, but that means you need to find a Spica level domestic player in another position. And that is not easy to do. So if you've got get me to Worlds or win LCS quality domestic player, you don't throw that away. You keep Spica. Huni, not sure. Power of Evil. I'm curious what people think. Actually, I'm gonna run a poll on this one. Here's the poll. Should TSM retain Power of Evil for 2022? I think for TSM's aspirations of winning at all costs, I don't think Lost is up to their standards. Sword Art. So Sword Art is one where I think there's going to be a little more debate. Sword Art, like, obviously his salary is so big that was kind of pretty well publicized how big his salary was. I don't think that's a huge concern for TSM. I think they have more money than any other team in the LCS. With the FTX deal and all of that, like, they're very well funded. So the only question is, do they think there's an import that they could get that is stronger than Sword Art? And there might be, right? When we look at the free agent supports out here, look, we got, from Europe alone, we have Hylissang, Kaiser, Vander, Limit, Treats are all free agents, right? From the LCK, we got Barrel, Lehens, Kellen, Effort. Those are all free agents. You can make a pretty decent argument that at least one of these players could be an upgrade on Sword Art. But what's it going to cost you to buy Sword Art out or whatever? So I'm going to say upgrade if possible on Sword Art. But what's it going to cost to do that? In terms of the free agents out there who I think would actually be an upgrade, Hylissang is somewhat debatable. Kaiser, I think, would be an upgrade. I'm not sure on the LCK front. Like, just haven't really watched enough. Like, I maybe Lehens or Effort would be an upgrade. Maybe Barrel. I'm not really sure. So, like, yeah, and I don't think you're ever going to bring Treats back. Just the history there. But, like, let's just say that. Let's put these names in there. I'll put Lehens in as well. But I personally think that running back Sword Art is relatively likely. But this is a keystone decision for them. Not the number one, but... Well, and it's not really a keystone decision. So I'm using keystone decision to mean something that will knock down other dominoes and lead to further, like, clarify other choices for you. Like, we can't make this choice until we've made this previous one. That previous one is a keystone decision. I don't think Sword Art does that, because you're only probably going to replace Sword Art if you get a stronger import. So if you can get, if you really need to free up that import slot, then you're going to replace Sword Art, but then you need to have a good enough domestic support to justify it and a strong enough import in the other slot to do it. So I think the Sword Art decision in some ways would be a consequence of other things. So the poll results are in. 53% think that TSM should retain Power of Evil for 2022. 47% think that they should not. There's a different question here, which is, do you think they will? Because there's should and there's will. I'm curious if people feel, that those two things align or not. Or do you think they should keep him, but they're not going to? Or you think they should not keep him, but they will keep him? Here's my opinion. If I was the GM of TSM, I'm selling Power of Evil to another team. And then Huni, I think, is one where I think this is more of an upgrade if possible. I think if you had Huni and Spica and Sword Art, and then did really well with the other two spots, I think that's a pretty good team. Better than replacing Huni and keeping Power of Evil. So that's my take on it. The green card question is part of it, but I'm not really factoring that in. I'm saying regardless of import slot, I think I can do better in the mid lane than Power of Evil if I'm TSM with the resources available to me. But of course, if you followed my content for a long time, I've always been cautious or reserved on Power of Evil. I must not have been the only other one, but I was somebody who had a higher priority on Jizuke than Power of Evil coming into this year, which most people definitely did not agree with. But I personally think that has borne out this year. So, keystone decisions, as Papa Smithy is incessantly pestering me in chat about. Thank you very much, Papa, for hanging out. Where do TSM import? Because if we think we can do better with, say, a top and mid lane import, then that affects whether we're going to keep Sword Art or not. Much more than his salary amount decides that, right? So, like, I think the place to start with TSM is, okay, we've got Spica, right? Now, who are the absolute best players we could get otherwise? Let's start domestically, because I think it's wise to build rosters by always starting with what you can get domestically and then adjusting your import approach based on that. Who might be available domestically in positions other than jungle? Blue are, like, interesting domestic free agents. Yeah. Jenkins, Will, Centauran, that's jungle, of course. Demonte, Five Fire, Arrow, Smoothie, Aframu, Zazel, and Biofrost. Well, these are not TSM level free agents. They don't meet the aspirations I have as TSM. So we are not looking at free agency. We are looking at the buyout market. That's how I feel. No, I'm just smiling to myself because I know that a lot of TSM fans are saying, go to EG and write them a blank check for Danny. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's incredibly unlikely. I think the price EG are going to ask is going to be quite high. And for that money, man, I don't know. Like, I can see why they would do it, and that does seem like a very TSM thing to try to do, but I can't see EG agreeing to it. So, I just don't think it's reasonable. But, like, who else? Let's scroll through some contracts here and see domestically So 100 Thieves have a talent push coming with Tenacity and Kenby. TSM will ask. For sure, they're going to be DMing the management of EG and being like, what would you ask for, Danny? And is there any chance? And then the EG manager will be like, no. And they'll be like, okay. But they're going to ask, of course. So let's say 100 Thieves wants to promote Tenacity and sell Someday. Or let's say they say, we're going to stick with Someday. Hey, we just went to World Semifinals. We're going to stick with Someday. So Tenacity is available. If I'm TSM, I'm more interested in Tenacity than I am in Someday, personally. Although, I mean, moving on from Huni in order to replace Huni with either Someday or Tenacity, I'm not super inspired by that if the goal is to win at all costs next year, right? So I don't know. Like, Tenacity is a great piece for the next 3 years. I don't know if he's what gives me the best chance in 2022. But we might want to circle back to that. Fudge won't be available. I mean, let's look at other positions also, right? Jungle is doesn't matter. I mean, Luger? Maybe? If you're going to be spending for Luger and using an import slot in bot lane, wouldn't you be looking at import bot laners who are free agents? Who are maybe better than Luger? I think there are some options there. I mean, like, EG is a team that will be trying to pay $3 million a year or more to get in a Chovy or a Showmaker. The free agent markets are... Okay, trying to beat out LPL offers is going to be really tough on these guys. I think bot and support have a lot of free agent imports that would be TSM level. Okay. I mean, Doran is also a player. Again, I haven't watched Silsuke very, very closely this year, so... I don't think Treats would want to come back to TSM, personally. And I think you could do better on the import market than him. If Jensen became available from TL, he would be an upgrade on Power of Evil to me. And he's already a domestic player. Maybe Power of Evil will get a green card, and then it would make that a moot point. But sure, that's something that might potentially happen. Let's say TSM has such deep pocketbooks that they can get exactly the players they want. Who would that be? Probably Kaiser. Let's say the Karzi and Kaiser duo. Let's say that, right? But then that would mean that they have to go domestic, top, and mid, right? And so who could that be? Well, we were just talking about Jensen. Let's say that. And let's just pencil in Huni for now, but we could replace that. Because, like, is there anybody domestic that you could get that would be better than this? We'll put the label in this scenario will be Madbot. Now, would you rather have Huni and Jensen compared to, like, let's invert this and import top and mid instead, compared to just a starting points Doran and Chovy. I don't know, Chovy or Showmaker. What do you guys want me to pencil in here? Can TSM get impact? I doubt it. I mean, they could try, but I don't know if that's what they necessarily... I don't think EG want Impact to move, and I don't think Impact probably wants to leave EG, but... I don't think you're going to import an LPL mid. I think you're going to import a Korean mid and divert them from China, if anything. Okay, I see more people talking about Chovy. So what if it's Doran, Spica, Chovy, and then what would your bot lane be? Aframu? Like, Arrow and Aframu? Maybe... Okay, we're talking about Power of Evil getting a green card. I'm saying they bought out Jensen, obviously. That's how. If and this is assuming that TL wouldn't move on, right? Like this is TSM. Literally anything could happen, I think. If been at this too long. I'm losing my train of thought. You wouldn't promote your son over Sword Art. That's not an improvement. Your son is an interesting player in Academy, but he's an import. He's not an improvement over Sword Art. If you're using an import slot in bot lane, you are not downgrading from Sword Art. If anything, you're going to try to improve on him. But I personally don't think they're going to move on from Sword Art. Where was I going with this? I'm talking about domestic bot lane options. Oh yeah. So if the green card conversation around Power of Evil is valid, then the green card conversation around Sven is also valid. Now Sven has been with TSM before, and you know it didn't seem like it went the greatest. But again, it's TSM, and if he got to come back in and play with Chovy and Doran, sure. What about this? I think it would be difficult for your son to become better than Sword Art. I don't think Sword Art was that bad. So. Doran is a free agent. Unless I made a mistake earlier. Where's T1? Wait, he's not with T1 anymore. He's with HLE, right? No, what am I thinking? Where's Doran? What happened to my brain? There we go, KT. So, I mean, I'm showing you I didn't watch LCK very much this year. He's a free agent this year. What if, I mean, if there's a different import top laner you'd rather have me pencil in, like, let me know. In terms of domestic bot lane, King and Isles, sure. Would King and Isles be better than Sven and Aframu? I think most people feel that Sven is a better player than King right now, and I wouldn't probably contest that. I think they're fairly similar, but if I'm TSM and I've got the kind of money I have access to, I'm not going for a player like Johnson. I think I'm going to aim higher, which is not a criticism of Johnson. It's just that's how high TSM's aspirations are going to be. So like, would you rather have, as I see is being said in chat, would you rather have Doran and Aframu or Huni and Sword Art? I think that's a valid question. I'm speculating. Okay, my actual expectation for what TSM will do, I think they will keep Spica, and I think they will end up keeping Sword Art. That's just like if I was going to try to predict. But I can see all kinds of reasons that they would be kicking the tires on other import support options. And I think if the right other pieces became available to use their import slots elsewhere, I could see them ending the things with Sword Art. But I don't think they are pressured to replace their support. I think it's more of like, yeah, just if there's another option. So. I'm trying to think of like other options for bot lane here. If you don't import, what else could you do? Like, would they say Arrow is actually like, do they think that Arrow is better than Sven? Maybe. But throw out some domestic bot lane names here, right? Like if we've got King, we're talking about, if we got Sven, or if we got Arrow. Wild Turtle, bring him back. Who are names that I'm just like blanking on that I shouldn't be? I mean, and I really don't think it's realistic to put in a Danny scenario. I don't think Johnson is at the level. Again, I already said that. Could I play with a Huanfeng Sword Art import bot lane? Well, sure. Let's put in lots of scenarios for TSM. Why not? So then we'd have to have something like Huni speak. We'd have to be talking about getting a Jensen or retaining a Power of Evil, but I think they'd be trying harder to buy out Jensen. I don't see a lot of likelihood for TL to blow things up, but like let's just put that in. Well, here no, like let's keep a wider variety of things. Sure, let's say that's a possibility. Why not? I don't think Sneaky would be an option. I don't think he would be able to perform, especially after a year away, to the level of TSM's expectations. But TSM have done more surprising things than that in the past. Do I see any other bot lane options that would excite me on a TSM level? Not really. Now, is there a chance that TSM would not go for like proven commodities everywhere? Is there a chance that they would go more for like indexing into future and potential? Who would it be? Buying out one of the T1 top laners like Canna. Well, sure, let's put that into one of these scenarios. Let's say that that's more interesting than Doran, because I think it is. I think it's more interesting to me. Yeah, I'll name this the PoE green card scenario. But like, I don't think TSM will keep PoE. It's tough because the domestic pieces are the one that are such a challenge for TSM, that I think their goals are going to be so high that they're going to look at all their domestic options and be like, hey, Cloud9, can we buy Vulcan? No. Okay. Hey, what else? Right? Like, who else could you buy that is like a top of NA level player that domestically? Those players are not available as free agents. Tactical? I mean, are we really going to speculate that TL is going to sell every piece available to them? Yeah, for sure their domestic shopping list is their main goal, Papa. And that's what I'm having trouble on speculating, like who might end up being available. I mean, here, let's look at your team. It's so hard to know who's going to be available. FBI will not be available. I'd be incredibly surprised about that. Someday, would they consider Someday an upgrade on Huni? I wouldn't. I think it's very similar. Would Huhi be available? I don't know, maybe. Probably not. I think the FBI Huhi thing is so tight. They don't need a jungle. I don't think Tenacity is up to what they'd be looking for, but maybe? That one's not as, like, circling back to it, it's not as far off the table as some of these other things. Let's put that in the target list. Different font sizes bother me. I think I'm not going to look at the other sheets because I think they have some of that. We'll do a Tenacity scenario in here. Why not? Because that would give you... Sorry, I got to keep Spica locked in here. That would give you 2 import slots for mid-bot support. And the hardest position to import, what's it going to be? Or the hardest position, rather, to get domestically. Hardest position to get domestically is probably going to be... So, like, if you have options like Huni, Someday, Tenacity for top, that might work out. I think mid's going to be the hardest position probably to get domestically. Mid or bot. Man, all three, mid, bot, and support, all seem kind of tough. Because in mid, you have to say either we're converting Power of Evil to domestic and we think he's worth retaining, which I think they're going to want to move on. then it's either that or like you convince TL that they can do better than Jensen. But here's the weird thing, like there'd be some pride in this, right? Trying to buy Jensen from TL is saying that, hey TL, we think you basically TL would be saying we can do better than Jensen, and if you're TSM, then you're saying yeah, but we can't. Like, but then again, the import slots do influence that, right? Like if TL have an import slot available to upgrade their mid, then that's different. So, but I can see that feeling a little weird from the TSM side. So maybe that's valid. But again, like if TL win LCS this split or get out of groups at Worlds or whatever, then do they end up moving on from Jensen? Man, I don't know. If Jensen could play with the right players, I think he'd be willing to join TSM. Sure, why not? Join forces with Bjergsen. It would be weird, but I don't think it's that weird. I get the feeling that they'll want to import mid. And then with bot, like the players at the level that TSM would want would be like the all pro type players. FBI, Danny, who I just don't think he's on the table. Tactical. I don't think there's really anybody else I'd include in that shortlist domestically. Would you be more likely to get Tactical or Jensen out of TL? I'm not sure. Probably Jensen, because I think TL would be smarter to retain Tactical. I don't think Neo is up to the standards TSM is trying to hit. Which again, like this is not a criticism of Neo. I think he's a pretty good player, but TSM are trying to hit the huge home run. Bjergsen is not coming out of retirement. That's silly. That's less likely than them buying Danny. So I think I don't know. I think that TSM probably do need to import bot. But domestic mids, like who are the mids that are high enough level for them? Domestically. Jensen, Powerview if he gets a green card. I'm not convinced on that front either. And I'm kind of racking my brains on options here. This is rough. I think TSM have a lot of hard choices to make. And this is why Sven, if he gets a green card, I do think would be very much of interest to them. Or like King, but like I don't know, things didn't work out that well with Lost, and Lost and King were pretty comparable coming into the year in terms of expectations. Yeah, you just don't have free agent domestic mids, and buyout target mids are like Jensen. A Blaze Olive, maybe. I don't know. I don't think TSM would go after a Blaze Olive. Even though I think I'd be pretty excited about it. I think it'd be cool. But Golden Guardians also won't want to give him up. I think Power of Evil. I think TSM. Okay, if you look at the way TSM played towards the end of the year and how much they tried to activate Speak and Sword Art on the map and adopt this more proactive map influencing kind of a style as opposed to the conservative scaling, optimize farm and be efficient kind of a style, I think they want to move in that what I consider like a more modern direction. And I don't think Power of Evil fits into that vision. I think it's very difficult for a player with his length of experience and amount of time playing his style, I don't think he's going to be able to buy into that to the level that TSM will want. So I think they're going to say this doesn't fit the direction we're trying to take our team. So those are why. Blow the bank on Niski. Oh. But, I mean, if you're going to import a mid, you have a ton of options, right? This is where it's all about which roles are we going to import in. I think you can find a domestic top, whether you're keeping Huni or like going after someone like Tenacity or whatever it's going to be. I think it's very difficult to find mid, bot, or support that are up to the targets. I think Aphromoo is an interesting free agent support that they might consider working with. I think he's still got a lot to offer. So like I feel like a scenario of importing mid and bot is the most comfortable for me. Like, but let's do a little more diligence on the support side. Who are potential buyout targets for support? Like, Huhi. I don't know. Like maybe. Do you think we've talked about them buying Jensen, buying Tactical? Would they be able to buy Core JJ? He's an import still, but I don't know. We've talked also about Power of Evil and Zen getting green cards. What if Core JJ got a green card? I don't know, man. Other supports of potential interest. Domestic support. It's really Vulcan and Aphromoo. Like, who am I missing? That is like an obvious TSM level. Isles and Ayla, actually, I should be talking about, but like, Isles and Ayla, are they Aphromoo level? Maybe. Probably a little more flexible, sort of, but maybe that's just being age biased. But like, let's throw that in here. And then you would have your... But I do think between Aphromoo, Isles, Ayla, I think there are more domestic support options than there are mid and bot. So then you could do your big import moves here, which would be what? Yeah, and to be clear, like, I think Sword Art, as I've said earlier, he's not somebody that you're pressured to replace. I think he's somebody that you might look at and say, if we think our overall roster configuration could be better if we shifted our import slot elsewhere, then you might move on from Sword Art. But I don't think there's... I think he played well enough that that you don't feel like you need to move on from him. I think if you're going to import a top laner, Broken Blade is not at the top of your list anymore. But, I mean, it's not impossible. A lot of things could happen. So, like, I don't know. Whatever you want could happen here. You could go for... You could try to convince, you know, Chovy and whatever. Who do you want? Who do you want as your, like... perfect world, perfect world, but still feasible import bot laner. They were talking about the Huanfeng Sword Art combo before, but if it's not Sword Art, Patrick or Crown Shot, I think Patrick would probably be a higher choice than Crown Shot personally, but I don't really know. Doctum, sure. Why not? Chovy and Doctum, or how about if they go Korea, or if they go Europe, then they're going to do Humanoid and Patrick. Something like that, right? Big spender, which TSM is. They'd have to buy out Tenacity, buy out Isles or Ayla, and sign Trophy and Doctam or Yona and Patrick. Like, this would be wild. But you know what? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that TSM go that crazy with their spending. But it is like, this is pretty out there. By the way, Academy scenarios for TSM, let's think. So right now they've got Hanser, Hyper, Sword and Takeover, Kodi-san and Yursan. I know some people have been asking about Takeover and also a little bit about Yursan. I don't think Takeover is good enough to promote for the level of win at all costs goals that TSM have, and I don't think Yursan would be an improvement on what you could do with other import slot supports. So, Academy scenarios, who cares? I don't think TSM do. Sorry to TSM Academy players, I cover you just as much as I cover other teams, and I'm interested in you as players, but I don't think TSM's goals or game plan really account for, like, Academy is a place to stash. Like, okay, the Academy might be relevant to TSM as a place to stash a backup option, right? Like they kind of did with Hanser and Huni. Like, okay, we have Huni, but he was pretty bad in some parts last year, and we aren't sure about him, so we're going to sign Hanser as well. So, yeah. I don't know, I'm sorry. It feels kind of glib, but I don't think it really matters. What are some other things? Speculate really big that TSM could do that involve keeping Spica, because yeah, they're going to keep Spica. I want to have like a bit of a more of a predicted kind of a thing. So if I was going to predict, I don't think this is it for a prediction. So I'm going to just pull that out. I don't want to do too many different scenarios. I think they're going to keep Spica and Sword Art. Shouldn't TSM care more about Academy for future prospects and talent? Oh, sure, I'd love that, but I don't think they do. I think they are always going to be kind of like Team Liquid. TSM and Team Liquid are always going to be, we're going to spend for the best team we can every year. Not build up. We're not going to try to build up long-term plans because we can always just spend every year. So I think it's prudent to build a talent pipeline, but I don't think it's a high priority for these orgs. So where am I going with this? Trying to build like a more of a prediction, what I think is a higher likelihood to happen. And I think it could look something like, let me just muse for a minute here. We'll groove a little bit. This is the last song in the Sessions Vi playlist. So it's going to get a little more intense after this, I assume. Not so chill. I've enjoyed the chill music, but we've used up the whole playlist here. Let me think. Just going to stare intensely at my screen for a moment. It's hard to talk and think at the same time. Think. All right, we're gonna switch our music tone here, our mood, as we really hunker down for the home stretch. Now, what if... Bear with me. What if... What if TSM Man, it's so hard to find the 3 slots of domestic players to feel good about. That really is what makes this so challenging. And I think that actually is the #1 keystone decision. I don't know. It's hard for me to see TSM getting away from Huni, to be honest. And, like, not that they need to get away from him, but, like, I think it's just difficult to find an upgrade domestically, and I don't think you want to import there. Why should TSM focus on domestic first when money is no object? Well, because, as I've said elsewhere and before, League of Legends roster building is a weak link kind of a game. The strength of your weakest link is a much stronger determinant of your overall outcomes than the strength of your strongest links. So if you start your roster build by going after the best possible players you can get, import or domestic, and then fill in underneath with whoever you can get afterwards, you're going to end up with a much weaker roster than if you start with, assuming that the premise is import players on average are going to be stronger than domestic players, because otherwise you wouldn't be importing them. So your import slots are really precious. So you need to get the strongest 3-player domestic core you can, and then add the strongest possible imports on top. Because if you miss out on one of your slots for a domestic player, you're going to have a weak link that's going to hold you back. That's fine. So this is like... This is me trying to predict. And since I'm predicting it, the likelihood's going to be low. I'll say that right now. I think they don't get away from Huni, and that they don't really have to. I think they don't get away from Sword Art, and they don't really have to. I think they look at mid and bot. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Chances of Core JJ getting a green card and TSM taking back tactical. You want me to put a percentage on it? On both of those things happening together? So what you're suggesting is TSM getting tactical and Core JJ, with Core JJ having a green card. I would put that percentage pretty low, like at 2%, but I think the chances of Core JJ getting a green card seem reasonably high. Misunderstanding the scenario you're trying to paint. You're saying if TL imports an ADC and keeps Core JJ and then tactical becomes available. Yeah, I mean, that could happen. Yeah, that could definitely happen. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to wrap my head around a scenario where TSM sign caps. Because it seems like that would be such a TSM move, given that G2 is likely to blow up a bit. Yeah, absolutely. I think TSM are going to replace Bioreveal. Yeah, but I can't really see it. But the point here is, like, this is the scenario I'm trying to paint because I think it's the most likely. But it all hinges on where can we get a domestic player that we feel good enough about in mid or bot. I don't think they import top lane. I think it's very unlikely. So, like, options here are Sven or this tactical scenario if TL, you know, get an import slot from CoreJJ getting a green card. Other options would be, I mean, Power People getting a green card and them keeping him, or TL making Jensen available. Luger is an import. Like, thinking that they can do better with King than they did with Lost is another option. But I find that a little unlikely, I guess. Man, it is so hard to know. Here's what I will say about TSM as an overall encapsulation is I think that they will be the biggest mover that ends up influencing what some of the other teams are able to do. I am definitely not considering Wild Turtle or Cody Sun as options for the amount of winning TSM want to achieve. And I don't think EG make Danny available at almost any price. And I do not think Bjergsen comes out of retirement. There's a lot of speculated options being thrown around here that I think are just not going to happen. Oof. Someone said, let Sword Art play with a bunch of domestic AD carries and let him decide. No. I don't think Jan is a sure enough bet. I just, like, I have a very difficult time finding. I think TSM are going to need to set their expectations on the strength of some of their domestic players a little bit lower than I've been setting them. Hanser, Scare, and Bjergsen double lift to Biofrost as a lineup. That would be so good, man. Good one. Prismo is arguably better than Lost. I've been very vocal saying Prismo I think was ready for an LCS shot, but I was also very vocal about Lost being ready for an LCS shot, and I think Lost was more ready than Prismo is. So, what if we did something just so we're not sitting here staring at it forever? I just can't decide. Hold on. I can't predict. It's kind of impossible. I can't predict. I can't predict what's going to happen with TSM. But, like, well, here, like, I think it will be an import mid-domestic bot. But what iteration of that it ends up being, I don't know. I think, here, I don't want to take too much longer here, but I can see them doing any of these three options. Let's say they went... I'm not even going to name for in terms of an actual prediction. I think this is very unlikely. This is a little more likely. So this is an example of an import domestic. Wait, some of those didn't move, did they? Oh, these are both Sven green card scenarios. That's why. I think this scenario is a lot less likely than some of these other ones. Let's swap these two. Let's swap these two. These aren't really ordered by most likely, but is there a world where 100 Thieves promotes Luger and sells FBI? I think FBI is better than Luger and he's domestic, so no. I mean, it's possible. There is a world, but I think it's very unlikely. If C9 flame out at Worlds, do I think Vulcan and Sven could be available as a package? That is a very high level of flaming out. I think Sven could be available for sure, but I don't think Cloud9. I think Cloud9 would be totally foolish to move on from either Vulcan or Blabber, honestly. Blabber more likely than Vulcan, though. Domestic support is harder to come by, I think, than top-level domestic jungler. Is there anything else I want to add to this, other than the fact that I just think it's going to be super hard for them to find players up to their level? Like, I think the number one thing TSM would love to find is a domestic mid laner to get really excited about. If they could get access to Jojo Pion, for example, maybe they'd be interested. But even then, like, I think there might be too much risk in a player like Jojo Pion for a team like TSM that is not building this talent pipeline to the same extent. So I don't think that would fit with what TSM are trying to achieve. It's too much of a risk for them. So Takeover is an import. If you're going to use an import slot in your mid lane, as I've said, if you're going to use an import slot in your mid lane, you're not going to use it on Takeover. So I'm not really sure where to land on this. I think any of these iterations could, well, not really this one. I personally would not want to stick with Power of Evil in the mid lane, given what I'm trying to achieve, but that's a good question, Dallas Department. Why did NA even import Takeover if you think that you can do better with an import mid laner than you can with Takeover? Well, I mean, let's say Takeover could be a lot stronger than he has looked so far. Like, look, in his first 3 weeks in summer, he looked really, really good, and I was very impressed. And then he fell off a lot from there, and he still looks fine. He still looks pretty decent. But I don't think he was dominating. He never dominated again the rest of the season so far, and maybe he still will on Proving Grounds. But no, I think that's a very valid question, and I have said before, this is why I don't think you should import rookies, because if you're going to use an import slot, you're going to use it on something where you know what you're getting a little more. But that's just me. I don't think TSM will ever take a rebuild year. I don't think an org with their aspirations and their bankroll would do that. No. So yeah, I just think if you're TSM and you're going to use an import slot mid, you're going to swing big for the Chovy, for the Showmaker, for the Humanoid, for that matter. So I don't know. I don't really have a single clear, like, I think they should do exactly this. But I think the number one thing they need to figure out is, where do we get win at all costs level domestic players, and start with that, and then fill in the imports, because there's a pretty good import market, I think, especially if you're willing to pay a buyout in mid bot and support, and even a little bit in top lane. Not so much, but like, look at all those supports. There are a lot of good mids you could potentially get access to with enough money, free agents or buying out. And there are a lot of good free agent bot laners to import as well. Get deft. Yeah. Well, I don't know that I can really nail it down more than that. And it's been about an hour talking about TSM here. So I think we're going to wrap it up with those. And hopefully it got your brain spinning on some stuff at least. Even if I don't feel super confident in what I'm predicting them to happen or to do. So, yeah, curious what other people will think, what you'll throw in the comments about which parts of this you think, what should be their top priority. I think their top priorities really just are kicking the tires on buyouts inside NA and seeing who they can get domestically at mid or bot, maybe at support, maybe at top, and letting the dominoes fall in sequence from there. And once you know that, you know where you need to import, and you've got a big market to go after. So we'll see what TSM does, whether it's anything like that. I think there are going to be some twists and turns and a lot of big dollar amounts being thrown around like there were last year, but I think even more so. I think it's going to ramp up even more. And I can't wait to find out, because I think TSM will probably be very exciting. I think they'll probably have the most exciting offseason of any team in the LCS. And I can't wait to be there for the ride. Well, thanks for watching on the TSM Armchair GM session.